Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, which will discuss the application requirements for the Second Chance Act Smart Supervision Grant Program administered by the Bureau of Justice Assistance. My name is Chidi Umez, and I am a Senior Policy Analyst at the Council of State Governments Justice Center, which provides training and technical assistance to grantees funded under the Second Chance Act. I will be joined later today by Julie James, Senior Policy Advisor at the Bureau of Justice Assistance, U.S. Department of Justice. Before we begin, I have a few technical notes. If you encounter connection or audio problems during this webinar, please call WebEx Technical Support at 1-866-229-3239. That's 1-866-229-3239. We've also put that number in the chat box on your screen. Unfortunately, there are some connection issues we may not be able to resolve during the webinar. However, we are recording today's webinar and will make it available via email and on our website at csgjusticecenter.org/NRRC. We should have the webinar posted online by next week. Today's webinar is organized into 4 parts. First, I will begin with an introduction to the Council of State Governments Justice Center and the National Reentry Resource Center, and an overview of the Smart Supervision Grant Program. Then Julie will go over the program requirements and expectations. She will continue with the application and selection criteria. I will share some important contacts and helpful resources, and at the end of today's webinar, we will have a few minutes for questions and answers. To ask a question, please enter it in the Q&A panel on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You can ask questions at any point during the webinar, and we will do our best to answer as many as possible before we end at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time today. The Council of State Governments Justice Center is a national nonprofit organization that serves policymakers at the local, state, and federal levels from all branches of government. Staff provide practical, nonpartisan advice and evidence-based, consensus-driven strategies to increase public safety and strengthen communities. Passed in 2008, the Second Chance Act authorizes a variety of federal grant programs that support state and local governments, tribal entities, and nonprofit organizations in providing evidence-based services intended to reduce recidivism. Second Chance Act grants have been available since 2009 from the Department of Justice, but the Smart Supervision Program, formerly referred to as the Smart Probation Program, was introduced in 2012. Technical assistance, or TA, for Second Chance Act grants is provided by the National Reentry Resource Center, which is funded by the Bureau of Justice Assistance and managed by the Justice Center, providing support to SCA grantees and the broader field. The NRRC has delivered TA to over 600 Second Chance Act grantees and provides individualized, intensive, and targeted TA, training, and distance learning to support SCA grantees. The Resource Center is continually adding new content and resources to our website, and we send out a monthly newsletter that provides information about the latest research, funding opportunities, distance learning events, and other news about reentry. To sign up for the newsletter, please visit the link on your screen after today's webinar. So far, in 2017, 3 different SCA solicitations have been released by BJA and will be awarded using FY17 dollars. Smart Reentry provides resources to states, units of local government, and federally organized tribal governments to plan and implement more effective and evidence-based reentry practices and service delivery systems that address individuals' needs and reduce recidivism. The Smart Reentry solicitation will close on March 14, 2017. The Reentry Program for Adults with Co-occurring Substance Abuse and Mental Disorder solicitation provides resources to states, units of local government, and federally recognized tribal governments to establish or enhance the provision of treatment to adults to facilitate the successful reintegration of individuals returning from incarceration to their communities. This solicitation closes on March 14, 2017. You can find more information on these programs and these grant solicitations at addresses on your screen. Of course, today we will be going over the Smart Supervision Grant Program. On the screen is an overview of the Smart Supervision Program awards for the past 5 years. While there has been a shift in the total number of awards, there's an average of about 7 awards per year. The total amount of funds awarded for this grant program since 2012 has been on a relative incline. However, please note that this screen merely illustrates the number of grants awarded and total amounts awarded per fiscal year to date, but does not reflect the number of grants or amount for the current solicitation. I encourage you to visit BJA's website at www.bja.gov and click on the funding link to find out more information. And later on in this webinar, Julie will provide guidance on the maximum award under this grant program. This map is to give you a national perspective that there are 37 current awarded grantees under the Smart Supervision Grant Program. Collectively, Smart Supervision grantees have planned exciting initiatives which have offered excellent opportunities for peer-to-peer learning. Some of the more common project areas are expanding supervision activities to include sanctions and incentives, dosage supervision models, cognitive behavioral change programs and mentoring services, programs that focused on risk and needs assessment, including validating their instruments, implementing new models for case planning, and developing a quality assurance framework. Training for supervision staff and community partners to move towards a more effective and collaborative supervision services is also an example of project areas that have been awarded. On behalf of the NRRC and the Council of State Government Justice Center, we look forward to supporting efforts to reduce recidivism and advance the field of community corrections through innovative and evidence-based practices. The mission of the Bureau of Justice Assistance is to provide leadership and services in grant administration and criminal justice policy development to support local, state, and tribal justice strategies to achieve safer communities. BJA's SMART suite of programs examines every aspect of the criminal justice system to identify what is working in the field to reduce crime and recidivism and to make our communities safer. The SMART suite of programs represents a strategic approach that brings more science into criminal justice operations by leveraging innovative applications of analysis, technology, and evidence-based practices with the goal of improving performance and effectiveness while containing costs. The heart of the SMART suite is practitioner-researcher partnerships that use data, evidence, and innovation to create strategies and interventions that are effective and economical. This data-driven approach assists jurisdictions to understand the full nature and extent of the crime challenges they are facing and to target resources to the highest priorities. Eligible applicants for this grant are states, units of local government, and federally recognized Indian tribal governments as determined by the Secretary of the Interior. BJA welcomes applications that involve 2 or more entities that will carry out the funded federal award activities. However, one eligible entity must be the applicant, for example, grant manager and the fiscal agent, and the others must be proposed as sub-recipients. The goals of the SMART Supervision Grant are to develop and test innovative strategies and implement evidence-based probation and parole approaches that improve supervision success rates, thereby increasing community safety and reducing violent and other crime by effectively addressing individuals' risk and needs and reducing recidivism. The objectives of this grant are to improve supervision strategies that will reduce recidivism, promote and increase collaboration among agencies and officials who work in probation, parole, pretrial, law enforcement, treatment, reentry, and related community corrections fields. The objectives are also to develop and implement strategies for the identification, supervision, and treatment of high-risk, high-needs supervisees, including subsets of this population which may serve as a model for other agencies throughout the nation. And we've highlighted the high-risk, high-needs because that should be a part of the target population for your grant project. The objectives are also to develop and implement developmentally appropriate strategies for the identification, supervision, and treatment of young adult supervisees that may serve as a model for other agencies throughout the nation. Objectives also include to develop and implement strategies to identify and enroll uninsured supervisees into Medicaid or other insurance through health exchanges and to connect them to treatment and health care providers as appropriate. Objectively assess and/or evaluate the impact of innovative and evidence-based supervision and treatment strategies, and to demonstrate the use and efficacy of evidence-based practices and principles to improve the delivery of probation and parole supervision strategies and practices. The deliverables for this grant include an action plan comprising a problem analysis, logic model, summary of strategies and intended outcomes, and research base for proposed strategies. The action plan is envisioned as a product of collaboration among the supervision agency, the research partner, and the technical assistance provider from the CSG Justice Center and the NRRC. A copy of the action plan that meets BJA's expectations for this deliverable can be found on the CSG Justice Center website in the link provided on this slide. The deliverable also includes a final analysis and report by the research partner. Mandatory project components for this grant include that the project can demonstrate agency commitment to the proposed initiative, clearly demonstrate the appropriate use and integration of evidence-based principles such as the assessment of risk and needs, document a baseline recidivism rate based on historical data, incorporate a research partner to assist with data collection and analysis, problem assessment, strategy development, or monitoring and evaluation performance. Just to note that the research partner can be an independent consultant, or located in an academic institution, a state statistical analysis center, or a research organization. The research partner should have demonstrated expertise conducting the type of work proposed. Allowable uses for award funds include to increase the capacity of states, localities, and tribal communities to help probation agencies improve supervision strategies, to test new policies and strategies in community supervision and treatment to increase public safety and generate savings, to test new policies and strategies in community supervision and treatment for young adult supervisees, develop or deploy information technology, to analyze and implement changes to policies and practices that guide community supervision conditions and revocation procedures. Allowable uses of funds also include to promote the use of evidence-based programs and strategies by service providers, to plan and strategize for how expanded options for access to health care can enhance health and safety outcomes for supervisees, expand collaboration and strategic partnerships between community supervision agencies and law enforcement, convene an interagency working group to analyze the jurisdiction's probation population drivers and make recommendations, and also to evaluate the results of the new strategies and tools tested through this initiative. The SCA Smart Supervision Grant Program, the solicitation applications are due March the 7th, 2017. And the link is available on this slide for the solicitation. Applicants must register in and submit applications through grants.gov. That's grants.gov. Instructions on how to register and submit the application can be found on the website. BJA expects to make up to 7 awards of up to $750,000 each, with an estimated total amount awarded of up to $5 million. BJA expects to make awards for a 36-month period of performance to begin on October 1st, 2017. Applications will be evaluated by peer reviewers using the following criteria: the statement of the problem, which accounts, or the description of the issue, which accounts for 15% of the application. The statement of the problem would describe the scope, which includes describing the size and the demographic makeup of the population, the current organization and management structure of the responsible agency and entity, the use of evidence-based strategies, including the type of risk and needs assessment instrument that will be utilized, and the current violation rate, and translate that to the baseline recidivism rate. The second criteria will be the project design and implementation. The project design and implementation section will clearly articulate how the goals and activities established for your project will address the overarching goals for the solicitation. The section will also use data to support your project design. The project design and implementation section accounts for 35% of the application, of the review criteria. The third section is the capabilities and competencies section, which accounts for 25%. This section, you will describe the management structure and staffing of the project, demonstrate the capability of the implementing agency and collaborative partners to implement the project. This section will also describe the qualifications of the SMART Supervision research partner and the prior experience of the researcher within action research. The fourth area of planning for collecting the data required for performance measures will account for 5%. All applicants must describe their method and process for collecting and reporting required performance metrics data. The section should list any additional performance metrics that will be used to assess the project's effectiveness and the process for collecting this information. The fifth section is the impact, outcomes, evaluation, and sustainment, which accounts for 10%. The section should identify goals and objectives for the program development, implementation, and outcomes. The section should describe how performance will be documented, monitored, and evaluated, and it should identify the impact of the strategy once it is implemented. In this section, it should describe the outline, it should outline what data and information will be collected, and describe how evaluation and collaborative partnerships will be leveraged to build long-term support and resources for the program. It should describe a plan for the evaluation project and document a collaborative relationship with an objective third-party evaluator. And this section should discuss how this effort, this project, will be integrated into the state or tribal justice system, plans or commitments, and how the program will be financially sustained after federal funding ends, and the expected long-term results for the program. Last is the budget area, which accounts for 10% of the application. The budget should be contingent upon the availability of funds, awards of up to $750,000. This section should be complete, cost-effective, and allowable. The budget should include the appropriate % of total grant award for research, data collection, performance measurement, and performance assessment. Programs should allocate funding to travel to the Department of Justice-sponsored grant meetings, estimate the costs of travel and accommodations for up to 3 staff members to attend 2 meetings in Washington, D.C. This solicitation does not require a match. However, if an application proposes a voluntary match amount, receives an award, and OJP approves their budget, the match amount becomes mandatory and subject to audit. Additional attachments for the application. For this information, please see pages 19 and 22 on the solicitation, and additional attachments required include letters of support, the project timeline, position descriptions, disclosure of pending applications, and research and evaluation independence and integrity. For more information or for questions about the process of submitting an application, please contact the grants.gov customer service hotline at 1-800-518-4726 or via email to support@grants.gov. The grants.gov support hotline hours of operation are 24 hours, 7 days a week, except federal holidays. For questions about the specific requirements of this solicitation, contact BJA Justice Information Center at 1-877-927-5657 or via email to jic@telesishq.com or by live web chat. The BJA Justice Information Center hours of operation are 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, and 8:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the solicitation close date, which is March 7, 2017. Applicants can obtain more information on evidence-based strategies for probation supervision from the following resources: a 10-step guide to transforming probation departments to reduce recidivism, which can be found on the Council of State Government Justice Center's website, csgjusticecenter.org. The second resource is Putting Public Safety First, 13 Strategies for Successful Supervision and Reentry by the Urban Institute, can be found on their website, www.urban.org. The third resource is Maximum Impact, Targeting Supervision on High-Risk People, Places, and Times by the Pew Center on the States, which can be found on their website, www.pewtrust.org. We've received, and now we'll move to the question and answer period, and I will start with some of the questions that we have received thus far. The first question says, can a nonprofit apply for the grant? And I believe we have Julie James from BJA joining us. Julie, can you answer that question?
Hi, Chidi. Thanks. Sure thing. So for this grant opportunity, nonprofits are not eligible to apply. You can find the eligibility information on the cover page, and eligible applicants are limited to states, units of local government, and federally recognized Indian tribal governments as determined by the Secretary of the Interior. I will note, however, that there are a number of grant programs under the Second Chance Act portfolio for which nonprofit organizations are eligible to apply. And I would suggest for the person who asked the question or for anyone else who's interested, if you search in Google for, or any other search engine, I guess, for OJP program plan for FY17, you'll find a publicly available listing of all programs that we plan to put into the field for the year, and you can filter all of those opportunities by eligible applicant categories as well as the grant-making agency. So you can see what precisely you'd be eligible for. If not this one, then there are other things that might be forthcoming that could fit with what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, thank you, Julie. We had a follow-up question to that, or another question related to that first question. It says, can a state agency partner with a nonprofit agency as long as, I'm guessing the state agency is the lead on the grant and the nonprofit is the sub-grantee?
Yes. Yep, it's the lead that is the sort of must comply with the eligibility requirement.
Okay, great. Thanks, Julie. Are there any other questions? We'll give a few minutes. Okay, we have a question. It says, are pre-release services considered eligible for this grant?
I'm going to go back to allowable uses for award funds. I don't see why not. I think it's, primarily the activities are anticipated to be performed by community supervision agencies. So particularly if that pre-planning is, and I actually know for a fact now that we do have at least one grantee doing pre-release services. So I think technically yes, and I think it just would need to be thought through carefully about how it complies with the other requirements of the grant.
Okay. Thanks, Julie.
Sure.
We have another question, but I think it was answered in your previous question regarding nonprofits or who is eligible to apply. A participant is asking if an individual can apply, and I believe Julie answered it earlier that it's really state or recognized tribal communities.
Right. Mm-hmm. Units of government, that's right, for the primary applicant. Now, if there is, an individual consultant that is written into the grant, that is allowable.
Okay, great. The next question is, can a state partner with a college or a university? And I believe that again, to answer that question, if the state is the lead agency and the universities are the sub-grantees, but the university cannot be the lead on the grant. Is that correct? That's correct.
Well, state universities are often units of state government, so actually okay. I think that could be the lead, but I think the idea for this grant is that it be led by the community supervision agency so that it's clear. Now that's not technically the sort of the eligibility requirement, but it has to be clear to the reviewers that the community supervision agency is really driving this, because our fear would be that if it were coming from the outside, it wouldn't be as clearly part of the goals of the organization. I will say that I would just direct everyone to the capabilities and competencies selection criteria that describe in detail the kinds of activities that we expect from a research partner. So that just to add detail to that relationship, yes, state colleges or universities would be a great research partner, particularly if they're local, because that can be a relationship that continues into the future. And we've given a fair bit of space in the solicitation to describing what that relationship should look like and what kinds of activities that researcher should be able to contribute to the partnership. Okay,
great. Another question asks if applicants are able to view past proposals from previously granted agencies, and then another question asks if they can see who's been awarded in their state. So I'll answer the second part. www.bja.gov does have the previous awards on the website, and as far as past proposals, Julie, do they have access to that?
Yes, there are links in the solicitation to a couple of successful proposals that we feel are really sort of embody what we're trying to achieve through this program. One by the 8th Judicial District Department of Correctional Services from, I believe it's Connecticut, and the Multnomah County Adult Probation Department. So those are linked directly from the solicitation. And then, in addition, yes, Chidi, that's right. This TAST funding is available. I would just say it's ojp.gov/funding, and then folks have to navigate. It's a little bit tricky, but they can navigate to OJP award data, and then you can search for grant awards by solicitation, and then look by Bureau of Justice Assistance, and then for each fiscal year, you can see who was awarded by program. I don't know that you all have that on your website, but that is actually, I'm curious if we have it on our Smart Supervision page, but maybe we can move on and I'll poke around and see what I can find.
Okay, yeah, I don't think it's available now. I think it's on our website, it's redirect to the OJP website, that information.
Okay.
Another question asked.
Sorry, it is listed on our Smart Supervision page. If you Google BJA and Smart Supervision, they're listed by fiscal year, so you can see through, I think, fiscal year 2015 who received awards in this program.
Okay, and that's what, okay, great, and that's what I figured. Is there, another question asked, would sex offenders be considered a high-risk, high-needs population, or would that need to be justified in the proposal?
Right, I mean, I think just with any other specialized population, there's going to be a range of need and risk, and so that would need to be justified by, you know, how are you assessing that risk, and how are you assessing that need? So it's not just sort of general sex offender population.
Right, correct. Okay, another question asked, is there a place for mental health courts under this grant proposal?
We have other grant programs that I think probably are better suited for that. You know, the sort of the piece of it that would apply, I guess you could make a case that the supervision aspect of it would apply if you're trying for a specific intervention, but we do have a program for problem-solving courts.
Okay. Another question. One question says, would the mayor's office qualify as a state agency under this grant?
I can't speak to the particular, you know, states and local governments organize differently from state to state, but my guess is that would be local, but that local agencies are eligible for this program.
Okay.
It's not just states.
Okay. All right, and we'll take a few more questions. Let's see. Okay, if a state agency did win the SMART grant award previously, would that preclude the agency from winning the award again?
It would not. They're still eligible to apply, but the potential applicant should know that we do take into account open active awards that are still underway, and the history of performance and grant making for different agencies in the sort of discretionary discussion.
Okay. Great. Let's see if we have any more questions. One question says, would a reentry court initiative qualify for this funding? But I think you've answered that previously regarding specialty courts and other funding sources and solicitations that speak to specialty courts. Probably
I'm going to try to find that before we get off the call. I mean, I think you could make a case. I just would I would suggest doing due diligence about where it fits best, because, you know, if we get an application that really looks like it should go under a different program, peer reviewers are looking at the selection criteria that apply just to this. Even if it's a great program, it might not get funded because we're looking for, very specific things in this particular program.
Okay, great. What is the next question says, what is the website that lists what BJA expects in an evaluator for this grant? That question can be answered, it was actually answered previously in the slides under goals and objectives and expectations. And for the evaluator, specific expectations for the evaluator, it's really that the researcher partnership relationship is able to develop that final analysis, collect the data for the project. And we did mention that the evaluator should have some experience regarding this nature of evaluation and data collection. Julie, do you want to add anything more about the expectations for an evaluator for this grant?
Sure. I would go back to the selection criteria in the solicitation, and that is on page. Bear with me. 29 to 30, which I referred to earlier, where the peer reviewers are really going to be looking at the prior experience with action research, including prior work with probation or parole agencies and other criminal justice partners. And they're looking for experience with different types of data collection and analytic methods. Prefer that they have several years of experience in these different methods, and that we're looking for specific kinds of activities, experience with different activities, and they're listed. There's a whole sort of host of bullets. For example, developing logic models, using data to spot problems in criminal justice and public safety, identifying and proposing proven strategies or interventions to address problems, documenting operations and processes, et cetera. So there are a number of real specific items that we're looking for in terms of experience and these are things that we have learned over the years to ensure that the criminal justice agencies have the best support and are able to implement their proposed intervention with fidelity and document that and sustain it. So again, that's the solicitation, page 29 to 30.
Okay, great. Thanks, Julie. We'll wait. We don't have any more questions. We'll wait a little bit. If anyone has any additional questions, please type it in the Q&A box at this time. All right. It looks like, oh. Okay. It looks like, well, we have one last question, but I believe we answered it, but I'll read it out. Are juvenile programs eligible? Are juvenile programs eligible for this grant? And the grant does have areas regarding addressing the young adult supervision population. So I'm not sure if this question relates to that 18 to 24 when you say juvenile, but Julie, did you want to expand on that more? The question asked if are juvenile programs eligible?
Yes, they are.
They are, okay.
And I think
great.
primarily we at BJ focus on adult or crossover populations. Right. And there are programs within the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention that are very similar to this. They're community supervision focused that are really focused on juvenile populations, but that would not rule you out from applying if you're focused on juvenile populations. Okay,
and juvenile here, the participant is saying that's 18 and under. So 18 and if their program is focusing on 18 and under, they're eligible, Julie?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great.
I think, you know, what you were referring to, Chidi, is our hope that we would see proposals for people in this category who are not fully sort of developed in terms of cognitive developments and all the research on brain development that's emerging, which suggests that you know, that a not quite adult, young, you know, this young adult category, that there might be interventions that would work for this particular group of people, and that would cross over from a juvenile population, say 14, 15, where you're starting to get more developed but not fully, and then through 24 or 25, when you know, sort of more adult decision making starts to kick in. That's what we were hoping. You know, because this is a grant that's focused on, you know, supporting innovation. We're going where the science is leading us.
Okay, great. The next question asks, where do mental health recovery, stability, and evidence-based programs for recovery fit into this? And I can jumpstart that by saying, within those who are eligible to apply for the grant, a mental health or recovery program can be a partner, a community-based partner for the grant and for treatment for the supervision participants for the grant project. Julie, that's correct?
Yes, they can be a part of the service that's provided in partnership with the agency. I would also say, though, that we have programs that really are focused a lot on either co-occurring populations or people with mental health needs. So I would suggest looking at the Justice Mental Health Collaboration Program, JMHCP, as well as the Second Chance at Co-occurring Disorder program. We also don't yet have a solicitation out there, but folks on this call should certainly know about CARA, which is recent legislation, the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act, which was passed last year, and there was an appropriation of new money, $38 million. BJA is going to be administering some portion of that, so that's something certainly to look forward to in terms of supporting addiction support services and related services in the justice system.
Okay, thanks, Julie. Another question asks, in regards to the sustainability after the grant, can those funds be identified as coming from public support? For example, private or church, I'm guessing foundation support, as far as the sustainability funds identified in the proposal, in the application, sorry.
I think so. I mean, I think what we're talking about is really what the sustainability plan is, and there's no requirement that the budget account for that, right? I mean, the grant is for a particular period of time, and so the budget should cover that, and there may be match funds that are coming in during that time, but what that section is asking about is what is the plan for continuing these activities after the end of the grant. For example, if you're going to use a new risk assessment, how are you going to incorporate that into your policy and practice? How are you going to assure that that's high-quality administration of that risk assessment tool going forward, et cetera? So that would be, I think, certainly would fit in that kind of category of things, but it's not a requirement that funding be coming in after the end of the grant. We're really looking for this to become the new way of doing business, you know, if it's successful. And so what the plans are for doing that.
Okay. So the focus is more on the project sustainability, not necessarily the funding sustainability.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. All right. We'll wait. We're almost to the end of time here. We'll wait for a few more questions to see if anyone else has any other questions. And again, this link will be made available for all those who participated or all those who are joining. It'll be sent out via email, and it will be available on the CSG Justice Center website, so you can get the contact information and all the numbers to call and all the emails to reach out to for further questions. We have another question about faith-based community, and that was actually answered earlier regarding who's eligible. I believe faith-based community organizations fall into the nonprofit category, and we answered that a nonprofit agency can partner with a state or local agency as a sub-grantee, but not as the lead agent.
That's right, and there are other programs that nonprofits can be lead entities, and there's, if you look on the OJP program plan or the BJ funding website, there are other opportunities where the nonprofits can be lead applicants.
Okay. All right. Last question. Okay, doesn't look like we have any more questions. And so we can end here. And again, we'll send out this link, and this information will be available on the CSG Justice Center website for any more questions, to get all the information that was presented during this webinar, and it has the contact information for questions regarding the solicitation and regarding the grant application process. And so with that, we will conclude the webinar for today. I want to thank Julie from BJA. Thank you so much, Julie, for being able to answer the questions that we have today and for joining us. And I also want to thank everyone who was able to join the call today. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for participating. And everyone have a great afternoon. Thank you.